Hi there, it's Sarah from Inspire Tarot. See what the Spirit wants to say to us today. So the moon depicts our shadows and our dreams, our hidden desires, things that are hidden from us, things that we need to look at, things that are unclear to us, and things that kind of often make us feel very uneasy that we don't want to look at. But we know that we have to go through the darkness to the light. And in A Course in Miracles, Jesus says, where you don't want to go, that's where you'll find him. Which means what you don't want to look at within yourself, what feels uncomfortable and painful, is actually where you need to go to find the light, or the love of God, which is beyond it. So we need to clear out the distortions and the unloving things in the unconscious mind. So the moon card is reminding us that it's safe for us to do that, because all of these dark and twisted things that seem so real to us, they're not. They're just distortions in the mind. And we also know from A Course in Miracles that it says the more deeply distorted things are and the more guilt we load onto the situation, the more these kind of demons in the mind seem to take on this monstrous quality, which feels as though we can't get past it. Yet at the same time, we know that we can be feeling in the depths of hell one minute, and then the next minute we can feel fine when we kind of move out of that state of being or out of the story. And there's so much darkness in the unconscious mind. Jesus says that it's draped with sin. But we know that sin's not real, because sin is the belief that we separated ourselves from our source, and it's just not possible, thankfully. It's only possible in misperception. So it's perfectly safe for us to look at all our darkness, and the extent, I think, to which we can face our darkness and look at our distortions and accept our painful feelings, that kind of really shows us how we can heal. We need to be able to look at that. We need to be able to see our painful feelings as not as something bad, as something helpful to us, something that's necessary for our healing. And the distortions, we kind of, it seems strange to say it this way, but we develop them from an innocent place because we're unconscious and we're doing our best, and we think that the problems are actually outside of us because we've unknowingly projected them. Then we're very innocent in our cluelessness, and that's why the Spirit is always helping us. You know, we may look at other people and think, you know, they're not conscious enough or whatever, but it doesn't really matter, because the Spirit considers us all completely innocent, and that we're all doing our best, and that we all need help, and everyone deserves love and kindness from that higher perspective. Because essentially we're in a dream, we're in a nightmare that God would never put us in, that can feel almost impossible to get out of sometimes, and we need the Spirit to help us get out. And one of the things that I really like about A Course in Miracles is the understanding that to see everything as innocent is the only real judgment, accurate judgment that we can make. And yes, people may need help and rehabilitation and things. It would be dangerous to see some people as completely innocent without, I don't even know how to say this without making it sound complicated or contradictory. We're all innocent in, it says that we're all innocent in eternity, but we're guilty in time. So yeah, whenever we believe that we're a human being, then we're going to feel guilty because we're in a state that God didn't want us to be in. We're in a dualistic state rather than a unified state. And then the dualistic state brings about so many complexities that really can't be resolved. We know that duality is a paradox, and within duality you can't resolve these paradoxes. We have to go to a higher level. We have to go to unity to dissolve the issues. So the Spirit sees everyone as innocent because the Spirit knows that the world is a dream. The Spirit knows that we are also the Spirit. this higher understanding knows that we're the mind and we can't be harmed at that level. The mind is unharmable because it has no physicality. So even though we seem very attached to our human selves and kind of protect ourselves from that place, the spirit knows that there's something beyond it that can weather everything that happens to us in the form, and that even when we physically die in this lifetime, the spirit just continues on, the mind continues on and can never be harmed. So the spirit is always wanting us to move more and more to understanding that that's who we are, and to align with that aspect of ourselves more and more, because then we become more and more untouchable. And I think we also then experience things in life as less serious and less frightening as we're more anchored in the truth. So yeah, moon card is good, just to show us that it's perfectly safe to look at our distortions, particularly with people who are comfortable looking at that kind of thing too. So much cat hair. The Five of Cups is a card about sorrow and loss. And yeah, from our human perspective, this seems like one of the worst things. But loss is essentially a made-up concept, because in unity there's nothing to lose. There's no separate thing that you can lose. And nothing can really be lost because everything is one. Everything is one. Everything is unified in the quantum field. And we've been taught by the ego or the devil to see things as separate objects, and then we feel as if something moves away from us, that we've lost it. But really, that's just a misperception, because it doesn't go anywhere in truth. It moves away and then comes back again. Energetically, we're always connected to everything. And I think the more that we understand this, the more the safer you feel and the happier you feel. You just feel more, it makes more sense to you when something moves away from you. It's not lost, and then you don't panic, because God wouldn't create loss. Why would a loving God create such a dark concept? It makes no sense. But often we have to go through difficult challenges and lose things over and over. And I know in A Course in Miracles it says that things are taken away from us so that we can see that they don't hold value. And over time, we become less attached to the external and more anchored in the truth, internally in our heart and mind. And then we don't feel the loss as much. Or if we do feel loss, then we recover from it quicker, because we know that it's not really, it's just an unpleasant concept that we can evolve from, we can move on from. But yeah, we often have to go through these periods of sadness when we let go of people, of situations. We may have a really great day and then try and recreate it. So we need to let go of the belief in linear time, and just see everything in the present moment as being perfect, and available for us to enjoy that presence, because that's how we stop being pulled around by the ego. Because there's nothing more distressing than to think that we're in the present and we want something in the future and we're separate from it, and we maybe even feel like, oh, I can never attain it. That's the very definition of hell, feeling separate from what we love. And it will, of course, bring up sadness. But these concepts are not true. And I think we understand this more and more as we go through the spiritual journey, that all the concepts we believe in that are fragmented, that cause us pain, we can essentially let go of them. And then when we do let go of them, we're free of that pain. Because God didn't create it, so it can be removed. Ten of Wands, Four of Pentacles, and the Page of Wands. So 10 of Wands is where we feel very overburdened and overcommitted and over-responsible. And we need to learn to prioritise. And for many of us, this is, if we grew up believing that we were responsible for other people's emotions, or responsible for things that we shouldn't really be responsible for, then this is a major distortion, a major people-pleasing distortion that we need to heal, because it can make us feel as though we'll never feel safe and okay until we correct something in the environment. But we can't really correct something in the environment. We can only really correct our perception. We can learn to see ourselves differently, to see the difference between what's mine and what someone else's. And we need to delegate, and we need to learn the art of saying no. But obviously we need to feel safe to say no. So this is a process. But the Spirit is always available to guide us whenever we feel just trapped and resentful. Whenever we feel uncomfortable emotions, we need to really look at what it is that we need to get underneath it, to see what the belief is at the bottom that's causing the problem. And it's usually just feeling as though we're powerless. We can see in this image that this woman feels very powerless and overloaded. She feels as if she's responsible for things that she has no control over. I mean, we can't really think of anything more just depressing than that, to feel as though we have to change something that it's physically impossible to change. So thankfully that's not true, and the ego will try and convince us that that's true, but it's not, thankfully. The Four of Pentacles card is about our attachment to the 3D and being controlling and possessiveness. And I think that when we do feel as though our safety comes from things in form being a certain way, then we do experience that possessiveness and we want to hold on to things. But the Spirit is always trying to guide us and help us to see that actually we don't want to hold on to things, because that's just keeping us in a false state of believing that illusions are true and that power and love and safety is outside of ourselves. So yeah, we're always being guided. The Page of Wands card makes me think of our spirit as it should be when we're not weighed down by trauma and things from the past, or beliefs that we're responsible for things that we're not responsible for. The Page of Wands is very much an energy of enthusiasm and creativity and feeling inspired, and wanting to bring that passion to everything that we do, that very open-hearted state. And the Spirit is always trying to bring us into this state, but knows that we have to go through the darkness to the light in order to achieve this kind of feeling. And it may be that we go through a stage where we feel inspired and we feel lit up and everything feels great, and then inevitably what will happen is something will go wrong, and from the ego's perspective we'll think, oh, you know, I had it good and then it left. But from the Spirit's perspective it was, yeah, you've just healed another layer, and that the form is really just the vehicle, as I've said over and over. So we're constantly being shown that the external world is of no value, really. And it's really all about our healing and our shifting in our perception to become more and more anchored in the truth and ourself. And then we can be more spontaneous and more creative and more able to communicate with more people, because we feel more trusting and we feel more happy and expansive, and we kind of want to just enjoy connecting with whatever comes into our reality, just for the fun of it. And it's interesting, and you never know what the Spirit's going to bring you or what someone's going to show you, and you can really see that in a positive way, and it's nice. So the Magician card is all about alchemizing and showing us that we hold the power. You know, Jesus he could perform miracles, he could part the sea and turn water into wine, and we can all do the same thing. In fact, we are doing the same thing over and over. We're always alchemizing, we're always creating something. Sometimes we're creating something we don't want, and other times we're creating things that we do want, but we're always learning and growing and learning what aligns with God and truth and what doesn't. And if we're wise, then we understand that in order to feel as if we have free will, we need to align with unified awareness, because then we feel free. There's nothing that we need to be free of, because we're automatically free when we think in that kind of way. And then when we feel this freeness, we don't block things coming into us, and we get to see everything in a very different way, which She's just expansive and fun and ever-changing. Queen of Wands. So Queen of Wands energy is very much focused on, the Wands are about our purpose, and the Queen of Wands is very passionate and very inspiring and magnetic. She's very much in that state where she just flows with life in a very dynamic way. And we're all essentially aiming for that kind of, to feel in Queen of Wands energy. Because we step into our power, we're very focused and we feel very creative, and we attract people because whenever we're aligned with the flow of the universe and we're aligned with the truth, and we seem to be kind of living the dream, as it were, we seem happy, then people are interested in it. People are not necessarily interested in what you tell them, but if you are a living demonstration of happiness and joy and abundance, then people are naturally going to be drawn to you and interested. And then you get to collaborate in a wonderful way. And yeah, whenever we're in this Queen of Wands state, we are going to progress through hermit phases as we do healing and inner work, because the Queen of Wands is very focused on her purpose. She's very focused on bringing the truth about our reality or our unreality of this world to the masses. And she understands that she's going to have to go through healing. We understand this as we go through our path, that we're going to have to go through healing and moments of solitude, because it's when we really look at ourselves and where we're not being loving, where we're out of alignment, and then we get to reintegrate and move forward again in a different way. So we're constantly being reformed over and over, but we're being reformed better and better. Death. So the Death card is all about transformation and new beginnings. And this card essentially comes after the Hermit phase, in that we die to an old self-concept. And that's why we tend to want to go into these hermit phases, because they are quite disorientating when we go through the darkness. And we need time to restabilize, because our human body and our human experience is essentially just held together by thought. So it makes perfect sense that when our thoughts shift, when our beliefs start to shift, that we literally feel as if we're falling apart and crumbling. And then we might want to retreat into ourselves because we don't feel safe. But at the same time, we know that this process is good for us. The more we let go of our understanding of ourselves as a separate something that needs to find safety, the more we're healing, essentially. But from an ego perspective, we're going completely in the opposite direction to what the ego wants from us. So we also have to cope with these ego backlashes and the onslaught in the mind, telling us that we're going the wrong way and we're failing, when in truth we're not. We're always going the right way. When I say we're always going the right way, what I mean is, we can't really go off our path. We can't really go the wrong way, because even if we make a mistake, we still learn from it. So it might feel as if it's a bit of a detour in linear time, but because only the present moment exists, and from the Spirit's perspective, everything is only ever now. So we're just realigning. We're realigning over and over. It's not like there is a healing, essentially. We're just, our present moment is becoming more and more purified. The High Priestess. And the High Priestess aspect of us knows the truth, knows that everything that we need is inside us, because we can never be separated from our source, and the Spirit and the truth is always within us, and that we can have it to fall back on. And the High Priestess understands the nature of the universe, that the universe is a dream, and that our perception of it is all that really matters. We can, there's a quote, I think it's by Robert Campbell, I want to say, and it goes something along the lines of, the psychotic drowns in despair in the same seas in which the mystic swims in delight. So I think that's a fantastic way of explaining the fact that we're all suspended seemingly in this quantum field. We have the capacity to see it as all supporting and magnificent and growth oriented, or we have the capacity to see it as like absolute nightmare. And the more we align with the ego, the more we don't feel good, and the more we align with the spirit, the more we do. And we kind of learn over time that we want to align with what feels good. And because we don't, we have free will to decide which mind we're going to align with, but we don't have free will to decide that the wrong mind will feel good, because it doesn't. And we can be grateful to God to that he's made it so that we're always being kind of encouraged in the right direction towards unconditional love. Otherwise we're not going to feel good. And yeah, it takes a lot of time for us to realize this, but we are always realizing it. And the Eight of Pentacles card shows us that we have to put a lot of work in. We may have to do a lot of studying to understand. I think we're drawn to this information. I find whenever I go through something that feels uncomfortable, I will invariably research and Google things, and also look at the tarot cards, but also the information comes to you via many different routes. The spirit knows what kind of things that we're interested in and will funnel information to us through these means. So we are always being guided, but we just need to stay determined and focused on our path. Whenever we find ourselves feeling angry with other people or disempowered, we are giving away our power, and we're looking at things with the ego, and we need to move back into our forgiveness and our trust. But yeah, it's something that we need to be very tenacious with and just do over and over and over. King of Wands. So the King of Wands to me is about honour, standards and wisdom. So I call the King of Wands card the inspirational leader. And anybody who's in a leadership role will be challenged over and over. So it's constantly being given challenges. When people project things onto us when we're in King of Wands energy, then we have to face it. Every time something happens to us that triggers us, we need to align with the truth and handle it in a way that's compassionate. And quite often when we're learning, we maybe don't do that so well, but it doesn't matter, because we're always being given opportunities. There's an endless supply of opportunities for us to heal, because this is an imaginal universe and there is no scarcity or lack. And the King of Wands is just a very passionate leader who's confident, somebody who feels safe to take opportunities, and is very visionary. And to do that, their mind kind of has to be ahead of the curve. So then we need to be, whenever we're in King of Wands energy, we're seeing things from a more strategic approach, as in a more holistic approach. So the King of Wands is an inspiring energy to be in. We definitely feel very empowered, and we're aligned with our purpose, which feels good. And then we attract more and more people to us that are aligned with the healing path and just making life more inspiring and comfortable. So King of Wands energy is great to be in. Okay, I enjoyed that reading today. I hope it helps. I love you all. Bye.